What's up, ADHD crew? So it's been a couple of years since I've last had a job, as I've been spending some time focusing on my education, and I recently got back into the workplace in a new temp job with the NHS, which requires me to wear a mask. So as you can imagine, I've had to part with my beloved beard. I'm devastated, but it's only temporary until the pandemic clears up, and hopefully I can get my foot into a new career. But to get to the topic of this video, I just want to discuss what I've noticed since I've started working again. As a person with ADHD, I can see quite a significant difference between myself and my colleagues, and it's really reminded me of how noticeable ADHD can be in these circumstances. And if you're working from home, I applaud you. It must be so much more difficult to maintain motivation and self-discipline with all these temptations, all the comforts that surround you that you just don't have in the workplace. So I think the environment is really important for people with ADHD, to have that structure in order for the mind to create hyperfocus. It really matters. So the first difference that I've noticed between myself and my colleagues is there is quite a big learning speed difference between myself and them. Like, I'll notice it'll take me a lot longer to take instructions on board. It takes a lot of repetition and I have to learn visually. So I've let my employer know I have ADHD on my application, but I haven't actually verbally brought it up. So whether you want to bring it up to your employer is another question. In my experience, bringing it up to your colleagues is not really necessary, and it can create a little bit of awkwardness. In my opinion, it's only really your employer that needs to know about it as a medical condition, but I think you do have to be careful about it coming across as though you're using it as an excuse in order for you to get less responsibility and to be cut more slack. They won't fire you for having ADHD because that's against the law. They're not allowed to discriminate, although I'm sure there are plenty of employers that will use any excuse to do it. ADHD can be classified as a disability, although it's not technically a learning disability. It still hinders your performance and your ability to recall information, in which case you might want to sign up to a union to protect yourself as an employee. The second thing I notice is that I'm not able to follow instructions as well as other people, and for some reason I don't know whether it's because I'm zoning out or because of the slow information processing speed, but I think that sometimes when you're listening, you can be listening with all good intentions to try and take it on board, but I think the ADHD somehow filters parts out. So when you're given information, your brain hasn't really fully registered all the information, so it's kind of like an incomplete sentence, and this means that you're likely to forget little details that are often subtle but make a huge difference to the outcome of the work. This can be disastrous for you. Another difference I noticed is response time. As an inattentive guy, I noticed that I'm the slowest. I tend to be the one who is always last out of the room, last to take action in a chore, whatever it may be. And again, this ties in with the information processing speed, because being able to work efficiently with accuracy demands a quick working memory. When you've got ADHD, your mind is not organized like a filing cabinet in a linear fashion. It's more kind of like walking into a room full of garbage piled up. And resilience. One thing I've noticed, when things get tough, I tend to shut down and I tend to socially withdraw and go quiet. This is because I am having such a hard time taking it all on board and processing it. I feel as though I can't keep up with everything, and I feel like I can't really listen. It's like my mind is sort of filtering everything out because I'm just overwhelmed. And again, this is just part of ADHD's dysregulated emotional system. Are you that person that always thinks, I'm always the last one to know? I'm always the last one to find out about something. For me personally, I've always been that guy. My colleagues will be talking about something to do with the company, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't know we were doing that. When did we do that? And I've often found myself not knowing standard company procedures even years into the job. So in this case, I'm always the one who seems a bit lost. I'm always the one who's asking for extra help and clarification on instructions, because I need a lot more in order to really feel confident about what I'm doing, because otherwise I just feel like a lost little kid. You may also feel a general sense of apprehension when it comes to decision making, being distracted by the overwhelming thoughts of how your decisions could be the wrong decision. It's quite difficult. Or perhaps if you're a little bit hyperactive, you may struggle socially in the sense of you'll say inappropriate things, you'll commit verbal faux pas, and you'll make a fool of yourself amongst colleagues. Or even worse, You might even get fired. I mean, my troubles in the workplace have always stayed kind of the same. Fortunately, I've never been fired, which is quite miraculous. But I have a good work ethic, even though I might not be the best, quickest, most efficient worker, I care. But I have had my fair share of disciplinaries because I just wasn't able to keep up and live up to their expectations and demands. So I pray that this time I can just keep my head above water. I wish I could come up with a solution for you guys for this, but I'm still figuring it out for myself. I think the only thing you can really do is just remain self-aware and practice. It's like a skill. And maybe just bring it up with your boss in private. Hopefully they'll understand, but a lot of people won't. But as long as you don't make a big deal of it and try to use it as an excuse, they might go easy on you and give you some accommodations to help you perform better. I mean, the last thing you want is to be treated like a charity case where your colleagues feel like they have to walk on eggshells because of your ADHD. I mean, you can just laugh and joke about it, but it's really nobody's business but yours. You hear a lot of people with ADHD are actually entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship could be for you if you want to consider that, if you don't like taking orders from other people. But for me, personally, I get freaked out when I don't have regular structure. So I think working 9 to 5 for me is quite nice because I like security. I like to know what I'm doing and it makes me feel safe.